All right, what's up, guys? We've got another episode of the Growth by Shawn podcast, and I'm here with Coach Laura today. So, Coach, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you, Shawn?
I'm not too bad. I'm pretty good. So, we had a nice little chat before this about podcasts and networking and where we're from, all that
Yeah.
kind of good stuff, when you first meet someone.
Yeah.
But the way I kind of start my podcast is I'm just going to ask a little bit about you and whether you want to start at the beginning, start in the middle, or start at the end and just give us a quick little synopsis of where you're at now. Doesn't really matter how long, and we'll just go from there.
All right. Well, number one, thank you for having me on. I'm super excited to be here with you. I love your energy. Like you're just like I can tell you have a lot of energy, but you're kind of like this chill guy, but the
Yeah.
energy's like right there. So
That's a
I
good
love
thing.
it. I love it. Let's see. I have a varied past. No, anyway. I have been in fitness my entire life, honestly, involved in it, excited about it, all aspects of it. When I was 16, my dad got me my first gym membership back in the day, and I would drive an hour to get there. It was very exciting for me. So I've always been that person, and I am the black sheep of my family. No one
Mm,
else is into it. No one
hmm
else does it, and it's not a big family. But so been into fitness my whole life. I got my first personal training certification when I was 18, and I've always had that. Went through, let's see, I have a nutrition coaching certification, personal trainer, like I said, group fitness, yoga, CrossFit, just all the things. Loved all the things. But the biggest thing, I think, the reason that I am doing what I'm doing now, which is functional health coaching, and that encompasses the nutrition aspect, stress, sleep, um, energy expenditure, energy in, energy out. We talk about digestion, GI issues are a big deal, hormones, metabolism. But I also do programming for people. I also have a garage gym where I train people. I also train some high school students, which is fun. I go to the high school. My husband is the superintendent, so I go in the morning and I program and train for them for free, and we have a great time and they make huge progress. And I think the biggest, and this kind of goes to that, is the reason I've always had fitness in my life, even when I was a high school English teacher, even when I was an elementary principal, um, is because my life, although it sounds like, oh my God, it was such a healthy life, you were into fitness, um, it was plagued with society's views of what I should be doing and my view of what society thinks I should be doing. And growing up in the 80s, it was no fat, it was do more, it was all the cardio. And I did a lot of that, and I ate too little, and I ended up with a really good eating disorder.
hmm hmm
And I buried myself, and I didn't have anybody to help me. I didn't have anybody to sit me down and say, here's just some basic things. Let's like drink your water, eat your food, like eat protein. You actually have to eat food. This is why. And so when I look back on those years, I think, wouldn't it be nice if there was someone like me who will meet me, I'll meet them where they are, and who would have said, hey, I know where you're at. Let's have a conversation, basic conversation. Let's not overwhelm you with the shoulds and the should nots and all the deep stuff. I just want to meet you where you're at and get to know you as a person and help you figure this out, right?
hmm
And that's why I do what I do. Like I train those kids, and I have a couple of clients, functional health clients, that are actually 16 years old.
hmm
I don't charge them. I
hmm
want to help them, and I think that's the thing, is it, particularly now, like, right, I'm 51 years old, and I I'm I work with a lot of women who have been taught, and who have, well, self-taught, right,
hmm
to do all the things and to constantly be on the go and to eat less so you look a certain way, and they don't look that way, and they can't figure out why, and they feel like garbage all day, but that's just how you're supposed to feel. It's menopause, you're supposed to feel that way, but you're not. That's
hmm
not what life is. And I feel like if I can catch them when they're younger and bring them
hmm
up,
Yeah.
so that's kind of why I do what I do, is it's just super important. There's too much misinformation, too much information out there, period, but too much
Mm-hmm.
misinformation. And even, it's not just women, right? It's men. I mean, men,
hmm
unfortunately, have gotten dragged into this, you have to be a certain way, you have to look a certain way, you have to eat a certain way, you have to, I think it's
Hmm.
just this whole thing of we need to start taking a look at who we are and
Hmm.
what we're doing individually and not buy into all that garbage.
Yeah. I the way I kind of like take this, it's very hard like right now because as a society, we don't, a lot of people, I think personally, this is just my opinion, but we don't realize that we are just what we believe. And like
Mm.
that's a hard concept to understand, not necessarily understand at like a base level, but a hard concept to embody,
Right.
right? So for me, like after hearing things like this, with all of the people that you come into contact with, what are some of the ways that you start to help others like change these beliefs, either about what they think they should look like, what they think they should eat? Where do you kind of start with people in terms of like changing like how they view themselves and how they view how they should look and how they should eat?
That's a great question. Um, well, I meet them when they're at, right? So
Hmm.
it depends on the person. But most people who come to me are in a position where they just don't know. They
Hmm.
don't know. So what do? Give me a 3 to 5 day food log,
Hmm.
right? I have an intake form. Tell me what you do all day. What does your day look like? What's your work look like? If you don't work, what do you do all day? What does your training look like? What does your movement look like? How's your sleep? All that.
Hmm.
Um, and then what we do with like this plethora of information, and we talk on the phone, and I want to get like you're doing right now. I want to
Hmm.
get to know him as a person because that's that's where we figure out what are the things that we can attack first,
Hmm.
right? Because I have a lot of women, and I said this on an IG live with Austin recently. Like
Hmm.
a lot of women come to me, a lot of people, and they're like, I'm not stressed out, this is just life.
Hmm.
So most people, we can't attack that right away. And that's big. So it's like, okay, so let's start, looking at your food log. And most people don't eat enough protein. So I say, hey, you know what we should do? Let's just add a little bit of protein to each of your meals each day. And then I don't just stop there. I say, there's a few ways we can do this to make it easier for you, right?
Hmm.
Because what we don't want to do is say, let's try everything at once and make it as difficult as possible,
Hmm.
right? Um, and so pick just a couple things like that. Water and protein are the super easiest ones to do. Most people aren't getting enough of either. And
Hmm.
then we talk about ways that they can improve that and optimize that. And I do a weekly check-in. So and people text me all the time and tell
Hmm.
me how they're doing, if they have questions or if something they're struggling or if they're celebrating. I just had one of my clients Friday, she texted me, we're working on pull-ups. And she's like, all she said was 3 seconds. That was the text. And I knew what it was because she's doing deficits. So I'm having her
Hmm.
jump up to the bar and just try to hold yourself, and do that deficit. We're trying to get to a 10 count. She got to a
Hmm.
3 count. It was very exciting. Um, but it's taking those small steps. And that's usually where we start is like protein and water. And
Hmm.
then, cause that's kind of the nutrition part.
Hmm.
And then really from there, I try to give them something else, not just nutrition wise, if they can handle it. So we usually talk a little bit about sleep because that's
Hmm.
huge.
Hmm.
Like, how's your sleep? What time
Yeah.
do you go to bed? Right.
Now, aside from all these like basic factors that we can kind of like keep track of,
Yeah.
um, what about factors that we can't necessarily like, it's not like a tangible thing that we can keep track of, like your environment,
Hmm.
okay? How do you start to um maybe it would be more beneficial to talk about as long as you're open to it. When you were talking about like your little introduction, no one in your family was really like health conscious. How in that environment did you start to thrive?
Oh God, that's a really great question. And that's huge for people because most
Hmm.
people don't live by themselves,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
They have a family, they have kids. Um,
I can
you
reword it
know,
if it's yeah.
No, 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 no. I
Okay.
just, I like to take a minute and just
Hmm.
make sure I know where I'm at. So it's interesting that you bring that up because most people get, most people are very disconnected here to
Hmm.
themselves and they do for others all the time.
Hmm.
And so it's a great question because of that. Because If I'm a mom and I have 4 kids at home and a husband coming, what do? I'm just going to make food for them and eat whatever
Mhm.
because I'm focused on them because that's my job, right?
Mhm.
Or I have X places to go. So I'm just going to grab and go because I have to do for them and I have to make it here and do those things, right? So we really start talking about, let's look at your schedule or let's look at what's going on and where are the easiest spots to make a small change.
Mhm.
If it's a mom, for
Mhm.
example, and the kids are at school and husband's at work, um, and her lunchtime is kind of her own, we'll work on lunch. Like we'll work on meal prepping lunches so that she has a really solid lunch, right?
Mhm.
Because that's her space. So let's do that. And I always give the why, right? Because being a former educator, I don't want to build someone who is enabled. Like, I don't want to enable someone and I don't want them to become really connected to me. Like, I
Mm.
don't want them to be like glue and be like, I can't leave you. I mean, I love my clients and I've
Mhm.
had clients for 2 or 3 years now that just stay with me because I mean, we're friends now
Yeah.
and we're continuing to work on things, and that's fine. But I don't want someone who feels like they don't know enough to be able to go do it on their own, right?
Mhm.
So, in the same vein, when we like say we pick that lunch to work on, we talk about why it's important. Why is it important to do this, that, and the other? Why is it important to have enough protein? Why is it important to have that meal? And then we talk about how that makes them feel because then we keep checking in. How does that make you feel? Because then we can take that little success and we can build on it and we can go, okay, next step, maybe it's breakfast.
Mhm.
Okay. Or like I have a client, she has 2 kids, 14 and 16, and her husband works and she works. And she texted me this like casserole. I'm in Minnesota. So man, you got hot dish and casserole and crazy. And she texted this to me and I said, looks good for the family.
Mhm.
Deconstruct it for yourself. And she
Mhm.
said, what are you talking about? So we got on the phone, just picked up the phone, called her. I said, okay, so
Mhm.
how do you make a casserole? You have to make the protein first, right? Yeah. Yeah. So I'm cooking up the turkey meat. I'm like, great. Take 5 ounces of turkey meat out, put it in a bowl for yourself. She
Mhm.
goes, okay. I go, what do you do next? She goes, pasta. I'm like, great. So you're going to cook out the pasta, take a serving of pasta. And we talked about what her serving size is for her. Take that
Mhm.
serving out, put in the meat in the bowl with the meat. Yeah.
Mhm.
Now you're deconstructing this. Now you put everything together and then put the veggies in and all that and give yourself veggies. I said, now you have this big meal, this big like conglomeration of a casserole for your family, but you have your serving on the side and you
Mm.
have your meal ready for you. And now we know exactly how much you ate. You're eating the same thing,
Mhm.
but now we know you're getting enough protein, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Um, so it's really about finding those places to be able to have them still participate in their lifestyle, still
Mhm.
be with their family, still do all those things and start to make those changes. Because then what happens? Now I feel successful and I'm like, I can do this.
Mhm.
I can do this. And then we have lots of conversations about it doesn't matter what the scale says.
Mhm.
It doesn't. I want to know how you feel. So I get on the phone with them or I do video check-ins. I'm like, tell me how you feel. I want to know how you
Mm.
feel. How's your energy? We talk about energy all the time.
Mhm.
And then we connect the dots. Well, you have more energy because you're not avoiding starchy carbs anymore.
Mhm.
Or at the end of we have dropped in a third meal for you between lunch and your late dinner so that you have energy here,
Mhm.
right? And you're not feeling like you have to nap. So um that's kind of how we do it is that mindset piece comes together in when we have those teachable moments where we're making those small changes because the actions are important, but if we don't know what's happening behind it and we don't connect that to our feelings and how our body feels, then
Mhm.
it's not going to stick.
Yeah. The thing is that we're not robots. And sometimes I think we get into this place where we think, I'm going to hire this coach. They're going to tell me exactly what to do, what to eat, and I'm just going to succeed. And like,
Mhm.
that's not the case because there was a lot that I wanted to like kind of pick apart from what you said.
Sure.
The first thing was, I think the word that you were looking for was codependency. I think that,
Thank you.
yeah, I didn't want to cut you off either though. Um,
Cut me off
and
whenever you want.
sometimes as um coaches, I feel that people feel like they become codependent on us. And that's not what we want. We want to give them all the tools and we want at the same time, like we have like this ego of we want to feel important and we do, but we don't want them to just have to depend on us because then it's starting to drain us as well.
Yeah.
I think that's like a good way to kind of paraphrase it.
Yes.
Um, from there, I also feel like there's a lot that coaches, health professionals, we talk about from the mental side of things, but we don't want to overstep as like into some type of therapy role. I think
Hmm.
that we have to wear that hat sometimes and we don't want to like cross that line, but we don't want that to be our job either,
Yeah.
and I think sometimes people find a comfort in like just talking with someone that they can relate to, which
Hmm.
maybe is why they found you as a coach anyways. Um, so what I was taking from that is I had a couple questions, but the one that I have lined up first, when you were talking about energy,
Hmm.
with the normal ebbs and flows of life, what should your energy look like on a daily basis for like the most part?
It's a great question. Um, there are lots of ebbs and flows of life. Here, like starting from when you wake up in the morning,
Mhm.
if you're not a morning person, you're not going to jump out of bed and be like, wahoo, I'm
Mhm.
awake. But there should be a relative feeling of restfulness. Like I am rested when I wake up. Maybe you don't want to jump right out of bed and maybe, it's comfortable and it's warm, especially, in the winter time and stuff. But you feel that sense of that you have gotten some good rest. So you
Mhm.
definitely want to have that feeling. And then once you get moving, you really want to feel like, I can take on anything. I'm not yawning. I'm not super tired. I'm not fatigued. I think a lot of people forget that, when we think about recovery from workouts and things, is like sleep is a big contributor to that. Food is a huge contributor to that, right? So if you're walking around and your energy is low because my shoulders hurt so bad from working out 3 days ago, we need to address that.
Mhm.
Um, if you're feeling like you need to nap every day and it's not because, I mean, right, you have those nights where you stay up too late, things are going on, whatever, that's different. But if you're feeling like you have to nap every day, that's a huge contributor. Like, okay, your energy levels are pretty low. And
Mhm.
it's interesting that people are pretty attuned to that. Like they can tell you, oh yeah, no, I got home and the second I got home I had to sit down on the couch. I just couldn't move. I was just exhausted. It's like, oh, we have a problem. We need to talk
Mm.
about, right? Um, Not being able to fall asleep because your brain's
Okay.
going. That's an
Okay.
issue, right? All of those things. And if I always tell people, like, if you are going for 2, 3 days in a row and you're on that high,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden slam, it comes down on you like a Thursday, Friday, ugh, everything gets really rough.
Mhm.
Like, we need to make some adjustments at the beginning of the week to adjust for that. Because
Mm.
we really shouldn't have those days where we are just pummeled into the ground. Like we should have a nice steady stream of energy if we are hitting all of our markers.
Now, do you normally try to take like if there's like four different areas to focus on:
Mhm.
water, food, sleep, uh, work? Are
Mhm.
you trying to pick just a little bit from each in order to um like create that better energy for the week, or are you focusing on one area and then once that area is done, focus on another area, then
Mhm.
once that area is done, are you like which way do you method have you found is more beneficial?
Um, the most beneficial I think that I can do for my clients is to listen to what they're saying
Mhm.
and hear what they're saying and then find the space in their words and in their feelings. So
Mm.
sometimes, like I had a client just last week, um, we did her check-in for the week before we were talking, and she mentioned, and I looked through everything and and she mentioned that work was a lot more stressful. She had a lot more things to do that week and that she was more tired and this and that. And so being able to say, okay, so when work is stressful, we can't really toggle that. Like
Mhm.
work is work.
Mhm.
You're either, I mean, you're not going to quit and you're not going to say, well, I can't do all that, right? You're going to do your work. So we toggle the other things that we can. And so we had the conversation about when you have those times at work where it's really stressful, you have so much to do, you're putting a lot of energy in that space. Yep. So let's take something away. Let's mitigate some energy out. How do we do that? Well, maybe when you're lifting, maybe we take that as a deload week.
Mm.
Or maybe we only lift 3 times a week that week, or maybe we just go to walking that week and we take the lifting out. Just give yourself a break. Because if you're, if your training is great, but if your training and everything else is super stressful and you're putting a ton of energy into everything else and you're not sleeping well, then your training isn't giving you what you need anyway. You're not getting where you want to go. So when I talk to my clients, I think the answer to your question is we have this big conversation and we narrow it down to what fits in the moment, which I think is the most excellent part of coaching, as opposed to like templates and stuff, is we're working on lifestyle things that you can do for the rest of your life that fit with your life, and we're doing it in the moment. So if it's something that's with work stress or work energy, we can work on that in the moment and we can come back to it and say, how did that go? What did you think? If it's relationship stress, we can work through ideas about how that might work and then we can come back to it. We can always come back to it and have the conversations. But it allows us to really kind of stay in the moment and work on things while we need to. Like the holidays just came and went, right? So I talk to all my clients about what's your plan for the holidays? How do you want your holiday to look? Do you want to just kind of throw the plan out the window and enjoy yourself and just do all that? Or do you want to kind of stick to the plan, and how does that look? And that was interesting too, because there's a lot of relationship stress that happens around the holidays. So we got to kind of pick that apart too and find ways to help them with that. So
I'm glad that I have you on right after I had Kenneth, because this is going to lead me right into the conversation that we actually had on the last podcast. How have you found that, because you've talked about feelings, mental state, all the like this big whirlwind of things that we have going on in our head, as well as all these external factors. How have you found like a healthy way to not only help your clients, but set boundaries for yourself in terms of not being like feeling like you have that like codependency vibe on you, I'll say.
That's a tough one. That's a great question. Again, you have such great questions. That is honestly, that's a huge learning curve, and I'm still in the process of learning that. And it comes from the fact that I really, honestly, I care about, I'm bought in the minute I get that intake form back and we've already had that conversation. I'm bought in. Like, you're my friend. I care about you already, and I want to see you succeed. And I want to see, I want the growth, right? I want you to grow. And so that's difficult because I want to be there 100% of the time for them. I want to do, and then to understand that I can't do it for them. And it would be nice to be able to do that, because it's easier when you're on the outside looking in, right? So I'm still in the process of learning that. I think part of that is understanding that for me, that I only have X amount of energy to give, and being really present for my own energy and know when I have extended myself too much. And because Kenneth is my coach, right? And Austin is my mentor. And so I have people that hold me accountable to make sure that I am not extending myself too far. So I have to be really, really cognizant of that. Finding systems that work to mitigate that. Like, this is how I structure how we have conversations, knowing that there's flexibility in that for when things do come up. So setting some system boundaries. But the hardest thing, man, is to hold myself accountable to that.
I see. Why do you think it's so hard? It's just because you want to help everyone?
That is my own struggle, right? Is I want to help everybody, and I find my value in this world through helping other people.
I see. So how are some of the way, like this is, I don't want this to come off in like a derogatory or negative type of connotation, but you help a lot of people. but at the same time, I see like small signs of like people pleasing to try to help everyone,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So how do you think some like people pleasing plays a role in your life or in your client's life? And how do you think that you can get over this? I think this would be really like helpful to anyone that feels the same way that you do. They just want to help everyone,
Yeah.
so a different perspective I feel like would be beneficial.
Yeah. It's so interesting you say that because in my head, I just went, yeah, a lot of the people I work with, a lot of my clients are people pleasers. Don't we
Mm-hmm.
just kind of attract the people that
Yep.
we like?
Mm-hmm.
And you know what is great is I learn from them and
Mm-hmm.
I learn by working with them because it makes me sit back and go, whoa, hang on, I do the same thing. Like I
Mm,
do this, right? Um, so, hmm, how do I do that for the people? You know what? I'll tell you what, I have a really good support system
mm,
of people who hold me accountable and just tell me like it is. Kind of like
mm,
you said, you're going to ask me this question. It might sound derogatory. It's not.
mm-hmm.
I don't take
Mm-hmm.
offense. I don't take offense.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and they'll just be like, you know what you're doing right now, right? And I'm
Mm,
like, yeah, like I overextended myself, right?
yeah.
Um, and I bounce things off of them a lot. Like this is what I'm coming up against. What should I do? Even though I know what I should do, but I just need someone to go, yes, do that.
Mm,
Send that email that reiterates your boundaries. And setting those boundaries and telling people what they are, that's huge.
mm-hmm.
That's huge. So for me to mitigate my people pleasing, that was a big piece of it, was to say I need to protect myself
Mm-hmm.
because my health was being affected.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that based on labs and all those things, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
knew that based on the stress I could feel in myself,
Mm-hmm.
right? When I feel anxious and or overexcited or nervous, right? Or my
Mm,
heart starts racing and I can't relax. It's like, okay, something's going on. And to be able to ask myself the questions, what is going on?
mm-hmm.
What am I thinking about? And what's bugging me? So setting those boundaries and not letting myself go over those. And how do I not let myself go over those? I tell people about my boundaries. I'm
Mm,
like, you
okay.
need to help me be accountable to that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and honestly, it's timing. It's a time frame thing for me. Like I only do work at X amount of times. And part of that is because my husband comes home from work
Mm-hmm.
and we have an agreement. I mean, I get to do this. This is what I get to do. And there are times when I have to do some work in the evenings, and
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. But the majority of my work, I'm going to get it done during the day.
Yeah.
And I tell my clients the boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I'll text you back within 24 to 48 hours, or or this is when we're doing your check-in on this day, and I'm gonna hit you on that day. If something comes
Yeah.
up in between, right? But setting the time limits for myself.
Okay. Do you think that some of these qualities in terms of helping everyone around you comes from issues that may have developed, or maybe not even issues, maybe environmental factors that may have been there from a younger age for you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All day. I've
Hmm.
been to therapy.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. I grew up in a home where I was in a I have a brother and a sister,
Mhm.
and I'm the middle child, so that should tell you a little bit. But I was the fat kid and
Mm.
everybody else was skinny. And
Mhm.
so um for me, I always felt like I needed to prove something, like I had to
Mm.
change. I had to change.
Mhm.
And there were a lot of family issues. There was alcoholism in the family, things like
Mhm.
that. And so my worth was based on, and I'm saying this my perspective. I'm an adult, so
Mhm.
I take responsibility for all of this. This
Mm.
I'm not blaming my family.
Mhm.
I don't blame anybody. We all went through what we went through. So this is on me, right?
Mm.
The way that I dealt with it was I'm worth what I'm worth if I can make other people feel good.
Mm.
My worth
Mhm.
is how can I help other people feel good? How can I help other people be better? What can I do for them?
Mhm.
Right. In addition to my worth was also very tied into how I looked.
Yeah.
Right. And so I've worked really, really hard. And that is interesting because that's the piece that has stuck around the longest is the
Mhm.
people pleasing part.
Mm.
Yeah.
Someone that may be younger, that also ties their self to like how they look, what advice would you give them to kind of help them detach from it?
Educate yourself and find someone who you can talk to,
Mm,
right? Because so here's the interesting thing. In my 30s,
mm-hmm,
so I became anorexic and bulimic in my like teens.
mm-hmm,
Okay. I used exercise as my bulimia. I never threw up. I just over exercised all the
mm-hmm,
time. And into my 20s and into my 30s, I was a zero sum game for me
mm-hmm,
when it came to calories in and calories out. If I ate X amount of calories, I had to make sure that I exercised X amount so that I
mm,
was either at zero or negative by the end of the day.
okay.
Um, so I didn't build muscle. That's for
Mm-hmm,
dang sure because my exercise wasn't necessarily lifting weights.
mm,
It was,
yeah.
I was doing marathons and half marathons and doing all the things, right? Um, and what I didn't realize, and I look back at pictures, is the number on the scale doesn't tell me what I need to know to look a certain way. I
Mm,
always wanted to look as I always wanted to quote be lean, which is garbage. I always
mm-hmm,
wanted to be able to see my muscles,
mm-hmm,
right? Because I thought that looked good and I thought that was the way to do it.
mm-hmm,
But looking back in pictures, I had no muscle tone at all. But I was looking at the scale to tell me what my muscle tone was, which doesn't make any sense, but no one told me any differently.
yeah.
Right. So when I talk to people now, and I'm going through this now because this year I'm looking to God help me, I'm saying this out loud, to to train to do a bodybuilding show for the first time in my life at the age of 51,
Mm-hmm,
right? Um, is I have to eat more. I'm eating more
mm,
and training hard, and the scale is going up.
mm-hmm,
So my coach and I are like, I'm just not going to weigh. I'm just going to
mm-hmm,
do pictures
okay.
because my pictures look great,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I mean,
Mm-hmm,
not where they need to be for a show, which is down the road, but
mm-hmm,
in the process of that, so it has to be. I always talk about this with people's like, if you look the way you want to look and you were 10 pounds heavier, would it matter?
mm. That's a great way to look at it.
Right. It
Mm-hmm,
wouldn't matter because you look the way. It's just that perception of how do we get there? Like
mm-hmm,
my perception was this is how I get there. And no one said, no, hun, that's not really how this works.
mm, yeah.
Right. So it's for if I was talking and I do, I have a girl that I'm working with and
Mm-hmm,
she's 16 and she's amazing.
mm-hmm,
And I'm like, we're gonna not no, stop weighing yourself.
mm-hmm,
We know we have work to do there,
yeah.
but it's about what we do each day. It's not about what the scale says. It's about
Yeah.
creating those habits. And so I talk about that all the time. Find someone who can have those real conversations with you. And it's not just about, oh, hey, no, you look right the way you are and all that kind of foofy stuff. It's
Mm-hmm,
saying this is really how your body works.
mm, yep.
Right? This is how your body builds muscle. This is how you have to recover. So putting the education, the physiological education behind it, so that when we start to have that conversation in our head because the scale's pissing us off or making us feel disappointed in ourselves, we can change that tape and go, wait, stop.
Mm-hmm,
The scale is only one marker. It doesn't matter. I'm going to look at my measurements are different. So being able to change that tape in our head in the moment. The only way to do that is if we have someone helping us
mm-hmm,
with that conversation and teaching us as we go.
yeah. There's a lot to take from that. First off, I appreciate you opening up about everything that you just did. There's a lot that I think people will learn from and look at, appreciate, and um really maybe start to change some of the beliefs that they have in terms of some things that they can relate to your story. Um, for me, looking at this 16-year-old client that you have, I was re-listening to a podcast that I had done a couple months back, and I had someone that quoted, "Marry the process and divorce the outcome." And
I
the
just saw that the other day.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I was listening to it and I had to share it again. And the way that he put it and the way that I can relate it to this, if we had a goal weight, which would be the outcome of 100 pounds, right?
Mhm.
And I'm just making up numbers here. But if we got to that outcome, we're not just going to stop at that outcome,
Mhm.
So we can't look to marry the outcome when no matter what the outcome is, no matter when we get to it, we're not going to stop there.
Mhm.
So as long as you can detach yourself from the outcome and learn to love the process of doing it, I think that's where people will start to have better like relationship with what the process actually is, as
Mhm.
opposed to chasing this number, chasing this waist size, chasing X, Y, and Z with their health and fitness.
And you know what's great about that piece and that understanding is you can take that out of health and fitness and put that into anything.
Mm-hmm.
Building a business, a
Mm,
relationship, all of that, right? It's
mm-hmm.
about the process because you're
Yeah.
not done until you're done, right?
Yep.
And when you're done, when you should be done is when you're dead and buried,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Um, what are your as we start to wrap up here? Because we're actually running out of time. I didn't even start to look at it. Yeah.
It's been
But
like 5 minutes.
yeah, I know. It it really feels like it's only been 5 minutes. But what are some of your I've got two questions that we'll kind of leave off here in the
Mhm.
last couple. So what are some of your personal business or health and fitness goals going into uh this year?
I love that. So as I said, I'll say it again. My plan is to work with my coach and get ready to do a show. Now, what I know is that the body decides when the show happens.
Mm,
So, talking about marrying the process, I'm going to marry that process this year
mm-hmm,
and see how far we can get in this year. So, I don't know there'll be a show, but there will be
mm,
progress towards a show.
mm,
Um, and another one is to another personal one obviously is
mm-hmm,
to continue to work on what we've been talking about, right? That
mm,
whole mental aspect of everything. And
mm,
that goes into the business one, which is I honestly I want to grow my business. I want to grow my business. I want to help as many people as I physically and possibly can
mm,
with the time and the energy that I have. And in order for me to grow my business, I'm just going to pour into the clients that I have right now
mm-hmm.
and let the universe bring the ones to me that need me and
Yep,
want me and need to do the work. So I'm
yep.
just going to put my head down and do the process, I guess.
For someone that's listening to this that um that can relate a lot to your story, what piece of advice would you give uh their younger self or your younger self or maybe someone that's even at a younger age?
You know what? The biggest thing I would say is raise your hand and say that you're challenged. I'm struggling.
Mm,
Raise your hand and say,
mm,
I am struggling. Don't sit in it thinking you're the only one.
mm,
Find someone, just let people know I'm struggling, and be careful because some people that you tell you're struggling might not appreciate that or might not do the right thing with it.
mm-hmm.
But make sure you talk, say it out loud.
Yeah. Nope. Well, I appreciate that. This was a really fun podcast for me, and this
Thank
flew
you, it
by.
was super fun for me
Yeah.
too.
Um,
Yeah.
what I always do is I just ask you to share a little bit about where we can find you. That way, other people can search for you and find your own podcast or find your coaching links if they want to work with you, things like that.
Great. I am all over the place. um I have a podcast called the Parallel Physiques podcast. That's with Coach Kenneth.
Hmm.
Apple, Spotify, YouTube. I have a website, www.lauralcoaching.com. I'm on Instagram at Coach Laura L. Um, I'm on Facebook, Coach Laura L. Yeah, I mean, seriously, I'm everywhere. You can't miss me.
All right, sweet. But other than that, that will do it, and we will catch you next time. Thanks for
Perfect.
listening.
Thank you so much, Shawn. Have a great
Yep.
day.
Thank you.